Good afternoon and welcome to the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada's second public meeting for proposed transit service changes later this year. I'm Catherine with Media Marketing and Public Engagement for the RTC. To allow for public participation, the RTC is accepting comments via email at getconnected@rtcsnb.com. That's getconnected@rtcsnb.com. Comments can be submitted to be read out loud to be added to the written record. Additionally, comments or questions specifically concerning the proposed service changes can be submitted on the YouTube live stream of this meeting. We will provide several breaks in the presentation to address questions as we go, and we'll hold a final question and answer session at the conclusion of the presentation. If we happen to have questions beyond the 1.5-hour meeting time, we'll provide answers via email, and all questions and answers from this online session will be posted at rtcsnb.com by early next week. For now, I'll turn the time over to Francis Julian, Deputy CEO of the RTC.
Thank you, Catherine. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight to learn more about the proposed transit service change taking place later this year, actually on August 8th, 2021. While we had to cut services last year in response to severe drop in sales tax and ridership, which are our two main sources of funding, I'm happy to say that we are going to restore and enhance transit services this year, thanks to federal stimulus. We have approximately $303 million in federal aid to dedicate to transit and paratransit and help us sustain our transit system. Those proposed service changes are part of our onboard, our community long-term mobility plan. The proposed service change will connect approximately 185,000 residents who previously did not have access to any kind of transit. These enhancements will help provide more equitable service across the valley. The service changes were built on 4 pillars, so access, efficiency, innovation, and equity. For access, we're implementing one of the biggest transit expansion in our valley. This will include 2 new fixed routes and several extended routes that will introduce basic fixed route transit, expand our paratransit area, and serve some really needed transit services. For efficiency, we're introducing an innovative pilot that will provide on-demand service as a paratransit and fixed route hybrid model. I will be explaining this in further slides. The innovation pillar. For the innovation pillar, we're implementing our first transit lab initiative. This will be implemented on the Charleston Route, or the 206, with the goal of speeding up that route by 25% and bringing the frequency up by 50% at the busiest stop that we have. For equity, we're continuing to increase frequencies in much-needed neighborhoods and restoring some services that were previously gone. So this is the overview of our transit services. Let me go through the legends of the map. It's probably small on some of the screens. So all the red lines are the new fixed route transit lines, or extensions of the transit lines. The red shaded area that you can see on the top of the map and at the right bottom are extensions of the paratransit service area, while the red dots are current eligible paratransit customers. So those customers previously to this service change would have to find a mobility solution to come in the service area, which is depicted in a yellow-orange color. At the bottom, you can see a greenish service area, and this will be the proposed microtransit service area. So let's go and talk about the demographics and the cost of this change. So the service change will, as I was saying previously, will provide transit services to approximately 185,000 residents that did not have access to any kind of transit services. Of those, 21,000 are actually living at the poverty level, 18,000 are senior citizens, 13,000 have disability, and 79,000 are non-white or Hispanic. We'll be improving access to 300 eligible paratransit customers in those expansion zones. As for the connection, 23,000 employment opportunities will be covered, and I have to caveat that number. These numbers are from data that dates from 2017. As I will be showing in later slides, you will see that this number is much larger. 7,000 resort corridor employees will now have access to transit, 43 new childcare facilities and school, and 6 grocery stores. The total cost for the transit service change will be $6.9 million. It's important to note as well that on the service change on August 8th, we'll be restoring our services to full weekday schedule. We're currently running a Saturday schedule. So now let's go in each of the service areas to go more in depth. So in the Southwest, we're actually introducing a new route, the Cactus and Horizon Ridge route, which is depicted in red, and we're extending the following routes: the 101, which is Rainbow, 102, Jones, 103, Decatur, 120, Fort Apache, and 121, Durango. In this area alone, we're providing transit services to 69,000 residents. We're giving access to 13, almost 14,000 employment opportunities, of which 4,000 are in the resort corridor, 13 new childcare and facility schools, and 4 grocery stores. So now let's talk more in depth about the proposed microtransit pilot that we'll be installing. So the microtransit pilot is a mode of transportation where both fixed route and paratransit customers will share a ride in the greenish shaded area. Paratransit customers will be able to go from one area to the other. So they'll be able to go from that greenish area anywhere in the valley where we're currently providing service. For fixed route, this service will actually, people will actually be able to call a vehicle. So either call our call center or use our mobile app and have a vehicle come and pick them up within half an hour at their door and bring them to the nearest bus stop for their destination. For paratransit, it's important to note it's the same process, so customers can book their ride the day previously or half an hour before their departure time. I just want to reiterate the fact that these are shared rides, so we will be utilizing paratransit vehicles, and the goal will be to have fixed route customers and paratransit customers share a ride to their final destination.
So we'll take a quick pause here, wait and see if anybody has any questions.
Perfect. So we do have some comments. So Monica, could you please read the comments?
Yes, we do have 2 specific comments for this area. The first one states, glad to see the red lines extending further south, needs paratransit out here. And the second one is happy to see that transit will cover more of the Southwest. I don't see any question in relation to this part quite yet. There is a question specifically about Buffalo and West Cliff, so we're gonna hold on that question to answer it until we get to that portion of the presentation. Nat does have a follow-up to the nice comment, and the question is, just to clarify for these ride requests in relation to microtransit, this is open to both paratransit and non-paratransit riders?
Absolutely. So any fixed route customers, instead of having to walk to their bus stop, will be able to get a ride, once again, within half an hour, and be dropped off at the nearest bus stop, and those rides will be shared with paratransit customers. Once again, it's important to note that for the fixed route customers, the only area where they can use that on-demand service is in the greenish service area. whereas Paratransit can actually go anywhere in the valley where we provide service.
And just as a reminder, you can submit questions and comments through getconnected@rtcsnv.com. That's getconnected@rtcsnv.com, or type it directly into the YouTube live chat.
We do have another follow-up question in relation to microtransit. Great question. Will this feature be provided through the Ride RTC app?
So our plan is to definitely provide this to the Ride RTC app. We'll see with the short time that is left, if we can do that starting August 8th. If not, we'll market the app that the customer needs to download. But the intent is for this to be accessible to the Ride RTC app.
We do see that we have other comments in the YouTube live chat, but we will hold those until we cover specific areas in the valley for those. So moving on to the next slide.
Okay, for West Henderson, so the Cactus Horizon Ridge route obviously will go through West Henderson as well. And we're actually changing the routing of the 122, the South Maryland Parkway in West Henderson. It will now cover, as you can see, most of St. Rose Parkway and go all the way to the M Casino and service all the warehouses that are present on Volunteer and Raiders Way. So just to name a few, Toronto Bakers, Levi's, Amazon, and so on. And once again, sorry, in this zone, as you can see, it's the same color, so the microtransit zone is actually present in that area as well. So for Horizon Ridge, this is a continuation of the Cactus Horizon Ridge, or what we call the 222, that will go there. As you can see, we used to have an inlet where paratransit customers could not ride paratransit, which now will be covered because of this change. It's important to note that the Horizon Ridge line will actually finally reconnect the residents from Boulder City. So that route will actually go all the way to Boulder City. And once again, we're covering here 1,100 residents, over 1,000 employment opportunities, 200 resort corridor employees, and 4 childcare facility and school. Maybe if we go back one slide, just to make sure I go over in West Henderson of the coverage. So 20,000 residents, that number, 3,000 employment opportunity, once again, it's from 2017. With all the warehouses that are there, we know this number is has greatly improved, and 5 new childcare facilities and schools. Now for the Northwest. The Northwest, we're adding a new route, the 220, which is Tropical, which actually will extend in the Sky Canyon area. And we're extending the Centennial Express, or what we call usually the CX route. 30,000 residents that did not have access to transit previously will now get access. 800 employment opportunities, 10 child care facilities and school will now be covered, as well as 2 grocery stores. So the Tropical Road obviously continues all the way to the west and ends near the Las Vegas racetrack, and will cover, once again, all the warehouses that are in North Las Vegas, as the likes of Fanatics and Amazon, and the multiple Amazon warehouses in that area. This new route will actually provide transit to 11,000 residents, give employment opportunity to more than 3,400 employment, which once again we know is a low number because of all those new warehouses, and 6 childcare facilities and schools. The North Decatur. So as you probably noted, the Decatur route was extended into the southwest. It is as well extended in the north to service the DMV, which was a long time coming, and Shadow Ridge High School at the corner of Decatur and Grand Teton. As well, the expansion was really needed. There's some high density apartment complex that are being built in that area and that will be actually finished before the transit service change. So this small section alone will help to connect 16,000 residents and 800 employment opportunities with 5 childcare facilities and schools.
We'll just take a pause here and see if there are any questions.
Yes, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. We're seeing that the questions are related to the next slide, so we'll just wait to address those questions and comments in a minute. So in the urban core, part of our regular transit service, here the modification, as you can see in blue, the blue lines are increase in frequency and modification to the weekend frequency. The purple line we'll talk, which is Charleston, which is our transit lab. So let's start with the blue line. So the Route 119, Simmons and Koval, we're increasing Saturday afternoon and late morning frequencies to every 30 minutes in the weekend, and they're currently hourly routes on the weekend. Route 203, which is Spring Mountain and Desert Inn and Lamb, we're increasing Saturday and Sunday frequency to every 20 minutes, where previously they were each half hour. And during the weekday, the frequency will increase to 20 minutes, one trip earlier than it does presently. Route 207 and Route 209, so Alton, Seward, and then Vegas and Owen, will now be restoring Saturday and Sunday schedule and Sunday services. And Route 210, Lake Mead Boulevard, we're increasing Saturday daytime frequency to every 20 minutes, which are currently every 30 minutes during the morning hours and every 25 minutes during the afternoon. Now let's talk a bit about Charleston. The way that purple line will work is in between Rainbow and Nellis, we'll actually have 2 lines. We'll have the Charleston blue line and the Charleston gold line. The blue line will actually perform the whole Charleston route, so from one end to the other with all the regular stops. The gold line will actually concentrate itself in the core, so in between Rainbow and Nellis, and only stop at the major ridership stop. The goal of this is to increase the total speed of the line, but more so in the core to increase frequency from 20 minutes, which it's currently running at, to approximately each 10 minutes, really increasing the service offering for those riders. And now we'll pause a minute. We'll come back just to gather all the questions and comments, and we'll be right back. Okay, we do have some really good questions. So Monica, if you would, and we'll ask our planner, Jacob Simmons, to answer some of those questions.
Yes, we have some really, really great questions, and we have a comment that we just got. Glad to hear 207 will be back for the full week. Thank you, Judy. Answering a couple of questions. One is specifically about the 203 and potentially connection to the new 220. The question is, the route 203 is there. Any talk about expanding it? I work in the Amazon warehouse. I take 203 and then walk 30 minutes to get to my warehouse. Jacob, would you be able to kind of talk a little bit about potential connections between the two routes?
Sure, yes. So we are definitely aware of the need for transit service to the Amazon warehouses in the Northeast, kind of the Lamb, I-15 Speedway area. And that's a big part of the reason why we're launching Route 220, which will provide the east-west service along Ann Road and Tropical Parkway into that area. Unfortunately, at this time, we're not able to extend. I mean, there's several routes that would be north-south routes that we would like to connect. At this time, we are not able to. We are not planning to extend the 203 to connect with the 220, but that is in our longer-term plans, and we do hope to extend that service in the years to come.
And Jacob, just maybe to help, which would be the closest north-south route that customer could take to connect with the new 220?
The DVX on Low C may be an alternative, just depending on where the customer is coming to and from. I believe that there may also be options available through the workforce mobility program that RTC works with.
Excellent, thank you.
Great. Another question is, will you have transit on Smoke Ranch?
So at this time, there are no plans to resume service along Smoke Ranch Cary. RTC actually operated bus service along the Smoke Ranch Cary corridor in decades past. That service ceased in 2012. And, that's part of the rationale behind improving service on Route 210 is to provide really high quality, good frequent service on a nearby major corridor on Lake Mead, which had been previously the much busier route in the area.
Thank you, Jacob.
And Jacob, we have one more question, pretty specific. I think you're going to get excited about this one. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. So we do have, and this viewer specifically had a lot of comments early on, so thank you for staying along if you're still on to hear the response. So the question / comment is, there is a severe need for service on Buffalo south of Westcliff. This could easily be done by splitting Route 121 north to two routes, the 121A on current routing and the 121B using Buffalo to Tropicana to Durango. Service Buffalo is more important than increasing frequency on other routes. Jacob, do you have some insight on that?
Sure. So, the comment is very fair in that RTC generally operates service every 1 mile along major arterials. And we do have a gap in service on Buffalo. We don't have service on, which is a mile arterial. We don't have service on Buffalo south of Westcliff. We have identified that is a need that needs to be filled. And that in the onboard mobility plan that we've developed over the coming years, there are plans to fill in that gap and to have north-south service on the southern portion of Buffalo as well. At this time, we are not looking to split Route 121, because that would result in half the frequency along South Durango, which during normal times justifies the 30-minute frequency that it currently operates. But we are looking, as I mentioned, it's identified as a need and a priority in the years to come. We need to find a way to do that without decreasing service on another nearby line.
Thank you, Jacob. And it is, to Jacob's point, this is clearly identified in our long-term mobility plan, which is called On Board.
We do have one more comment and question, maybe we can clarify. Erin actually just posted this. Your map on the bus sheet is not correct for bus 402. The description of the changes are correct. Can you run the 402 down Greenway and Van Wagenen, I don't know if I'm saying that straight, Van Wagenen, back to Horizon?
And I'll have Jacob.
So I'm not entirely sure I understand the question. I am attempting to pull up the map that we have on this tear sheet right now, but the proposal is to replace Route 402 with Route 221 to become that service into Boulder City. The current portion of Route 402 north of Horizon is not proposed to be directly replaced because most of the service along the 402 north of Horizon, just about every area is served by another route currently.
Thanks, Jacob. I think that answers the question, but Erin, if you still need some clarification, feel free to add a couple more questions into the chat box. Francis, we do have a comment and maybe need a little bit more clarification on the 206 Charleston route. Judy just commented, trying to get my head around the 206 changes, specifically on how to plan for my trip. With so many opportunities to pick up a Charleston bus in the core, it looks like it would be easier to just guess.
So depending on which bus stop you'll be at, and it's a great question, but depending on which bus you'll be at, so if you're at one of the major intersections like Rainbow, Decatur, you probably just would have to wait, and obviously depending on your destination, but the combined service bus, then it would be much easier to just take the first bus that comes. If you have specific origin and destination, the best way, obviously, when our service guide will come, you'll easily be able to plan your trip or to use our Ride RTC trip planner, which will get you either to the Charleston Gold or the Charleston Blue, and will indicate you the fastest time to travel. And hopefully that answered your question. If not, please send us a comment.
Thanks, Francis. We do have another question. Will there be service for the Speedway?
So yes, the new 220 will actually go all the way to the Speedway. The 220 being the Ann Tropical Route.
I don't see any new questions at the moment. If we want to proceed with the presentation.
Yes. So let's talk about timelines. So we plan to adhere to those following the following timelines that you see. So from April 15 to May 31st, we're seeking public comments and feedback during a 45-day public period. On June 10th, we will be, once we get all the comments, most likely, just like in the past, we'll proceed to some modifications, some minor modifications of our plan, and then we'll go seek the RTC board approval on June 10th, and all service change are slated to start on August 8th. And during the public comment period, our goal is to connect with the public, educate them about the proposed transit service changes, listen to their feedback, and learn what is important to all of you listening tonight. Through the end of May, we're using the following tools to gather this feedback from the public. First of all, we're issuing surveys. So before I go on to the rest, the surveys are really important for us to gather information. So Catherine, could you please tell the audience how can they fill a survey?
If you go directly to our homepage, rtcsnv.com, you'll see a scrolling banner at the top directing you to the service change public comment page. So click on that. If you want to type it directly into your browser, the URL is rtcsnv.com/service change 2021.
Good, thank you, Catherine. So these were the surveys. We're actually going to do community engagement, so virtual like we're doing now, or in person, online advertising, there's going to be a lot of email blasts and traditional advertising. And this actually concludes my prepared remarks, so we'll wait maybe a minute or so to get some question. I see that we have one question in the queue, but we'll still wait 1 minute just to gather some more questions. So we'll be right back. Thank you. Okay, we're back. We've got a couple of questions and a follow-up question. So let's start with the follow-up questions.
Okay, so Aaron, did clarify on the original question. So, he's asking, currently the 402 will end at Horizon and Pacific. I was asking to continue it on Horizon to Greenway and loop back to Horizon and Pacific.
So just to clarify, the 402 will no longer exist, but the new Route 221, the Cactus Horizon Ridge that will go all the way to Boulder City will actually service that corridor that Aaron, you're referencing to. Good. Do we have other questions?
We do. The next question is, will the SDX come back to service?
No, the SDX will not come back to service. So what we just started to do is massively increase the frequency of the Deuce, and the Deuce will get some increased frequency come August 8th. And there's no plan for the SDX to come back. Actually, those vehicles are at the end of life and are starting to be retired.
We do have another question. Are there any plans to work with merchants, schools, employers, and landlords to give customer an equivalent benefit to the free parking provided by to auto users?
I'm not sure I understand the questions, but exactly concerning the parking, but definitely when the service change in our outreach come August 8th, for the new extended zones, we'll be providing some free passes for residents to try transit, where previously there was no transit as well. And we do have a program with Club Ride currently that can actually connect you either with car sharing, transit, bicycling as well.
Another question we have from Francisco, is the new cactus line running hourly? Also, I missed the information about Charleston and your proposed new setup. Can you repeat that information?
Okay, Jacob, if you want, because it's your master creation, do you want to answer the question for the cactus route? Is it an hourly route?
Yes, Route 221 will be starting out at once an hour, as most of our new routes have. And we will, of course, hope to see ridership grow over time. And if it does, it will be subject to improvements just as the rest of our routes throughout the valley are. But yes, we will be starting out at once an hour, 7 days a week, approximately 5 a.m. to midnight.
Excellent. And just for that listener, at the same time, don't forget you will have the microtransit services as well in that area to help you pick you up at your door, and bring you to your closest bus stop. So you'll be able to plan your journey to arrive on time to take your bus.
Did you want to maybe just do a quick recap of the 206 Charleston?
Oh, for the same. So sorry, I missed that. So yes, so for the 206, so for the Charleston route, starting August 8th, we're going to improve in the core. So from Rainbow to Nellis, we're going to actually speed up the average speed at which the bus goes by 25%, and we're increasing the frequency at major stops by 50%. So from 20 minutes to 10 minutes. So the way this is going to work, we'll have a blue Charleston line that will do the traditional Charleston route. So from one end to the other. And in the core, we will have a gold line, which will start at Rainbow and end at Nellis, that will only service the major bus stops. And at those stops, that's where the frequency will be at each 10 minutes. And as I stated in a previous question, the best way once the service change comes is either to look in the transit guide to see what's your fastest alternative, or to use Ride RTC and use our trip planner and benefit from that added capacity that we're putting out there.
Another great question, Francis. Will you keep the 401 service in the downtown area for the foreseeable future?
For this service change, we're keeping the 401.
Why don't we just take a quick pause, gather a couple of more questions, and
Yes.
then we'll be right back.
Okay, we're going to go on mute and be right back. Okay, we're back. We have some comments and questions. So, Monica?
Yes, we have a couple that just came in. So first one, can you go over the timeline before August 8th?
Okay, so for the timeline, we'll put the slide back up, and please resend us a comment if it's not the answer you were looking for. But right now, from April 15th to May 31st, we're seeking public comments and feedback during this 45-day public comment. There's going to be, in between May 31st and June 10, most likely minor modification following all the comments. And on June 10th, we're seeking the RTC board approval to implement all the change. And on August 8th, we're enacting all the proposed transit service change. And once again, just reminding that the weekday schedule will come back at the same time on August 8th.
Great. We do have a very nice comment from Francisco. Thank you, Francis and Jacob, for your information. Good luck with your teams moving forward and improving transit in this post-COVID world.
Thank you, Francesco. We both, Jacob and I, and all the staff at the RTC, were passionate about transit and providing this great service to our community.
And we do have a follow-up question in regards to the one we had earlier about incentives and working with landlords and businesses for incentives. So the clarification here is places give free parking but no equivalent benefits to transit users. We need to address this issue.
Okay, so we do have some employers that are giving free transit to their employees through our Club Ride program. So that is something that we're always seeking to engage. So if in the comment, maybe you can tell us where you're working. We'll have our Club Ride department reach out to them. This is actually a great program, and right now I'm really happy to announce our program. That's a program that's starting next week called Try Transit. So Try Transit will be for all our fellow residents that unfortunately lost their job during the pandemic that are coming back to work. We are working with the employers throughout the valley, and are giving out 2 weeks of free transit. So hopefully I've answered your question.
Thanks, Francis. We do have another question. Could you explain a bit about driver training prior to August 8th about service changes? Recalling when the 110 route was changed and that it took a little bit until the new route became consistent.
Yes. So that's a great question, and this is always a challenge. Both our contractor, MV and Keolis, do extensive training. The way the bus schedule works with drivers, when we have new routes, they have to train over 1,000 drivers on all those new routes and sections. I know for a fact that both contractors are already starting to train their operators on all the new transit service change, and our quality assurance team will be out there monitoring probably for the first 2 weeks all the service to make sure that drivers are executing the new routing correctly.
Thanks, Francis. I don't see any new questions in the chat box. If you have any before we kind of start over again, feel free to submit them now in the next minute, either on YouTube or once again via the email that was provided earlier during the session, which is getconnected@rtcsnv.com.
And we'll be right back. Okay, we do have a comment before we start the second presentation.
We actually have two comments that just came in. The first one is from Stephanie. It says, "Thank you. This is a long time coming. So many people with disabilities are in desperate need of transportation. This will help many people access their community." And then we have another comment from Nat. It says, "Thank you for this really informative, exciting changes."
Well, thank you both, Stephanie and Nat. As we were mentioning, we're quite excited about this service change here at the RTC.
So thank you to everybody so far who submitted comments and questions to us. If there are no more at the moment, we'll just actually begin the presentation again for any new viewers. So if you want to stick around and ask more questions, fantastic. If you know of anybody else who would like to watch, we'll be starting momentarily.
Okay, good evening again. My name is Julian. I'm the Deputy CEO for the RTC. Thank you for joining us tonight to learn more about the proposed transit service change taking place on August 8, 2021. While we had to cut services last year in response to a severe drop in sales tax and ridership, which are our two main sources of funding, I'm happy to say that we're restoring and enhancing transit services this year, thanks to the federal stimulus funding that we've received. We received approximately $303 million in federal aid to dedicate to transit and paratransit. So that funding was crucial for us to maintain transit services during the pandemic, and now allowing us to restore transit services to about 97% of pre-COVID levels. These proposed service changes are part of our onboard, our community long-term mobility plan. The proposed service changes will actually connect over 185,000 residents in the valley. We've built the service changes on four pillars. The first one is access, efficiency, innovation, and then equity. For access, we're implementing one of the largest expansion of transit that geographically, once again, that will provide access to 185,000 riders. For efficiency, we're introducing an innovative pilot that will provide on-demand services as a paratransit and fixed route hybrid in the expanded service area of the Southwest and West Henderson. For the innovation pillar, we're implementing our first transit lab, which will be on Route 206, which is Charleston, with anticipated results of speeding the line by 25% and increasing frequency by 50% in the core area of the route. For equity, we're actually always committed to equity and establishing what is right. So we're restoring the weekend services to Route 207, 209, increasing frequency to Route 210, 203, which is Spring Mountain and Desert Inn, and on Saturdays, and Route 119, Simmons and Koval on weekends as well. It's important to note that all service will resume to a weekday schedule starting August 8th. We are now currently running a Saturday schedule. So here's an overview of the proposed transit service area. So let me go through the legend. So if we go and we start at the top of the map, all the red lines are either brand new routes or current route extensions. The shaded red area is the expansion of the paratransit service area. The red dots are current eligible paratransit customers that did not have access to our paratransit services that will now be included in the service area. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see a greenish area. This will be the proposed microtransit service area. And in the middle, you'll see blue lines. So these are weekend frequency increases. And the purple line is the transit lab on Charleston, which is meant to speed up the line and increasing frequency at the core of Charleston in between Rainbow and Nellis. So now let's talk about who these service changes will affect. This will actually positively affect 185,000 residents who previously did not have access to any transit. 21,000 of them are currently living at the poverty level. 18,000 are senior citizens, 13,000 have a disability, and 79,000 are non-white or Hispanic. We're actually going to now improve access to 380 current eligible paratransit customers. And in the connections, we're actually going to connect those residents to more than 23,000 employment opportunities, of which 7,000 resort corridor employees that did not have access to transit, 43 new childcare facilities in school, and 6 grocery stores. I have to put a little caveat on the employment opportunity, that 23,000 number. This is data that we have that dates from 2017. As you will see in the later slides, with all the new warehouses and employment opportunities that emerged in our valley, this number is much greater. And finally, the total cost of the service change is $6.9 million. So now we'll go into more details, region by region, of the proposed service change. So, and once again, the service change, I think I've mentioned that in the during the first slide, but we're actually going back to approximately 97% of our pre-COVID service levels. So first of all, let's talk about the Southwest. So you'll see in the Southwest, we have a brand new route, the 221, which is going to run along Cactus and Horizon Ridge and go all the way to Boulder City. We're then extending the following routes: Route 101, Rainbow; Route 102, Jones; 103, Decatur; 120, Fort Apache, Rampart; and 121, Durango and Buffalo. This area, as small as it looks, actually will positively impact 69,000 residents in providing them with transit, almost 14,000 employment opportunities, of which 4,000 are in the resort corridor, 13 new childcare facilities or schools, and 4 grocery stores. So now let's talk a bit about the microtransit pilot. So the greenish or the paler shaded area of the section. So microtransit is basically smaller vehicles that will be on demand. So any customer, whether they're fixed route customers or paratransit, can pre-book a ride up to a day in advance or up to 30 minutes before their departure time. A vehicle will actually come and pick them up at their door, and for a fixed route customer, bring them to their nearest bus stop. For a paratransit customer, it will be the same thing as any paratransit. It will be a door-to-door service, meaning that those customers can actually leave that paler shaded area and go anywhere in our service area. It's important to note that this is a shared service, so we will have multiple riders, so it's not like a taxi service. We'll pick up passengers as we're going to a final destination in an on-demand fashion, and then stop them either at a bus stop or, in the case of a paratransit customer, at any destination desired within the service area. So now, if we go over West Henderson, so West Henderson is, once again, that's the extension of the Cactus and Horizon Ridge, the 221, that new route that we were talking about. We're actually changing the routing to the Route 122, the South Maryland Parkway, West Henderson, that will now go all the way to DM, and as you can see, service most of St. Rose, and will actually now go and service all the new warehouses present in West Henderson. Just to name a few: Toronto Baker, Levi's, Amazon, and the Amazon warehouse. As you can see with the color, the on-demand microtransit will actually be available in that area as well. This area will service 20,000 residents, 28 employment opportunities. Once again, that number is from 2017. With all those new businesses, we know this is a much greater number, and 5 new childcare facilities and schools. I think we're going to pause for a moment to see if there's any questions or comments. We'll be right back. Okay, we do have a question, and we'll have Jacob, our Director of Planning, answer the question.
Jacob, we have a question from Don. Is the bus from Tropicana to the Suncoast Hotel and Casino coming back?
I believe that is in reference to the previous WAX route, the West Cliff Airport Express. We do not have plans at this time to resurrect that route. However, we do have the Centennial Express was modified in October of last year to serve Tropicana and Las Vegas Boulevard and connect up to our Bonneville Transit Center, where the Suncoast, where Suncoast can be reached via other of our transit routes, including the 207. So that direct connection, there are no plans to restore that at this time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a couple of other questions as well. Going back to microtransit, first question, why was this particular location for microtransit selected?
That's a great question. First of all, this is a pilot, so we're experiencing this. So the goal with microtransit and the fact that we are, will be providing transportation to paratransit and fixed route at the same time is actually to stretch the taxpayer dollar. So we think this is a more economical way of providing transit, and while the way we're enhancing services. Because this is a new service area that's quite big, it's about 31 square miles, it was ideal for us to actually try this pilot and see eventually what we can do in the rest of the valley. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. One more follow-up in regards to microtransit. Is this service going to be available through the RideRTC app?
Yes, so the intent is to have this to the RideRTC app, and we will definitely have a secondary app. So the first app, which we'll be working with our software provider, will be available, and hopefully by August 8th, it will be available in the RideRTC app. If not on August 8th, it will be soon after. But we'll definitely market where to go and what app to download to our riders.
Okay. One more question. Well, actually, should we hold off on Urban Core?
Yeah. Okay, so we have a question from that we'll address that just came up that we'll address when we go to that particular area. So stay tuned. So let's continue. So Horizon Ridge, this is actually again the extension of the Route 221, the Cactus and Horizon Ridge, that will end all the way in Boulder City. This segment alone will service 1,100 residents, give access to 1,100 employment opportunities, 4 childcare facilities in school. And as you can see on the map, we used to have an inlet where we had paratransit customers that were not serviced, represented by the red dots, that will now be included in the service area. So for the Northwest, we have a brand new route, Route 220, which is going to be tropical, that will extend all the way to Sky Canyon. And we're extending the Centennial Express, the CX route, as well in this area. So in that small area, you can see the impact and the need for transit, 30,000 residents, 10 childcare facilities and schools, and 2 grocery stores. So I just spoke about the start of the tropical route, which is starting or ending, depending on where you're going, in Sky Canyon. It will actually go all the way to the racetrack and actually stop along the way to all the new warehouses in North Las Vegas, to name a few, the Fanatic, and multiple Amazon warehouses in this area. So 1,100 residents will positively be impacted, 3,400 employment opportunities, which once again, I need to put a caveat, this is a 2017 number. With all those warehouses and plants, we know this number is much greater, and 6 childcare facility and school. The North Decatur, as I mentioned earlier, the Decatur in the south is extended in the southwest. It will now be extended in the north as well, finally servicing the DMV. That was a long time coming for us at the RTC, and going all the way to Shadow Ridge High School on Grand Teton Avenue, and as well servicing all the apartment complex that were recently being built along this section of a corridor. So this section alone will service 16,000 residents, 5 childcare facilities and schools. Okay, now let's go to the urban core. So as I mentioned earlier, blue lines are frequency increases, and then we'll talk about Charleston Boulevard, which is in purple. So let's start with Route 119, the Simmon and Koval route. So we're increasing Saturday afternoon and late morning frequency to every 30 minutes. Currently, this was an hourly route during the weekend. Route 203, which is Spring Mountain, Desert Inn, Lamb. So Saturday and Sunday frequency will be increased to every 20 minutes. They're currently running each 30 minutes. And during the weekday, we're adding a departure in each direction to make it 20 minutes earlier than it is currently. Route 207 and 209, so Alta, Stewart, and Vegas and Owens, we're restoring the Saturday and Sunday schedule. And Route 210, Lake Mead Boulevard, we're increasing Saturday daytime frequency to every 20 minutes. So now let's talk a bit about the Charleston route. So the Charleston route in purple. So as I was mentioning, the intent is to speed up this route by 25%, so the time it takes you to travel on that route, and increase frequency in the core. So from Rainbow to Nellis, at the most popular stop, we will have a bus each 10 minutes instead of the current 20 minutes. The way it will work, there's going to be 2 lines, a blue line and a gold line on Charleston. If you take the blue line, it's the current Charleston route, which will stop at every bus stop that currently Charleston serves. And then there's going to be a gold line, which will start at Rainbow and stop at Nellis and service the major stop where we have the most riders. And when you take a trip on those busiest bus stops, you will then get a bus each 10 minutes, greatly improving your transit experience. So I think we'll take questions now, since I know we had a question about the core, and we'll continue the presentation. So we'll be right back. Okay, we're back.
Okay, first question is, are there any plans to bring the SDX back?
No, there's no plan to bring the SDX back at this time. 2 reasons. One of them is those vehicles are getting retired. They're at end of life. Secondly, we're actually on August 8th, we will be increasing the frequency on the deuce. We started doing so just to modulate the deuce with the demand. But in August, you will see a deuce that has much more frequency than it currently has. And second question?
I'm squeezing in one more about the strip before I move on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
With Resorts World opening up late June, is there going to be service to the new property?
Yes, actually, there's modification to a couple of routes. So the deuce will have its dedicated stops, and we will have the 119 is now diverted to go and service that stop, as well as the 203.
And then we've got a question from a Raiders fan, I'm assuming. Just curious, is there any plans to add special shuttle routes to the Raiders game as there are now to the VGK game?
So for the Raiders game, definitely because of the capacity in the stadium, the frequency on the deuce, the number of buses on the deuce will greatly be enhanced. And for the rest of the question, for the shuttle, just like the Vegas Golden Knights Express, we're currently in talks with the Raiders, so more to come on this.
No other questions at the moment.
Okay. So we'll continue the presentation. So what are the timelines? So from April 15th to May 31st, we're seeking public comments and feedback during our 45-day public period. Then we'll actually proceed to most likely modifications, just like we did in our last service change following the comments. And on June 10th, we're seeking the RTC board approval for all those changes. And on August 8th, enacting the proposed transit service changes. During the public comment period, our goal is to connect with the public, educate them about the proposed transit service change, listen to all their feedback, and learn what's important to them. And as I mentioned last time around in our public comment, we modified quite a lot our initial plan to cater what we've heard from our community. Through the end of May, we're using all the following tools to gather this feedback from the public. I want to make an emphasis on the first one and have Catherine talk about it. So we actually do have some surveys right now, and Catherine is going to explain and tell you how to go and fill out those surveys.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you through our survey tool. So if you haven't already taken it yet, you can go to rtcsnv.com on our homepage. There's a scrolling banner at the top directing you to the service change webpage. So click directly on that. This survey should only take about 5 minutes, and we actually have some great incentives. If you would like to automatically receive a 24-hour transit pass, you can do that, or be entered into a weekly gift card raffle. So visit our homepage to get to the service change website, or if you want to type it directly into the browser, the URL is rtcsnv.com/service change 2021, rtcsnv.com/service change 2021.
Good. Thank you, Catherine. So yes, so the way we're, all the tools we're using, the surveys as we just mentioned, we're doing community engagement, so sessions like we're doing today virtually will actually be physically doing a lot of outreach in the community, online advertising, e-blast, and traditional advertising. So this concludes my prepared remarks, so we'll take a little pause and wait to see if there's comments or questions, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. We just received another question.
We have one more question from Dawn, and the question reads, since the SCX will not return, will other buses be used for express on the strip area?
So at this moment, there's no plan for any express services, but as I mentioned earlier, we will greatly expand the due services to increase frequency.
Francis, I guess more of a personal question. What is your favorite transit route on your CCX service?
That's a tough one because I pretty much like all the routes, but with my daughter actually going on the strip and being on the top of a double decker and seeing the nightlife of Vegas is one of my favorite activities to do.
That is the best view in town. It really is. I don't see any other questions, so we can pause for a moment. If you're still watching, make sure to drop your questions in the chat box, and we have about 15 more minutes to get them answered.
We'll be right back. Okay. Good. We have another question. Monica?
Yes, we have a question from Lois, who lives near Horizon Drive. So if she needs to get to downtown Henderson or to the mall, how would she get there if there's a discontinued route on Pacific?
Jacob, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So there would be some options in addition to the 221 providing a new option to reach new destinations. But generally, to specifically reach, say, Galleria Mall, the most direct path in that case would be to use the 221 to the 115 on Stephanie to connect there. The 115 is a pretty frequent route, so that connection would be pretty convenient. To reach downtown Henderson, specifically Water Street, for example, would involve traveling east on the 221 and transferring to the BHX-A.
Which is the Boulder Highway route.
Correct.
Thanks, Jacob. If you can just stay on for another moment, do you mind repeating your response to the previous question about service to Suncoast, specifically the wax route?
Sure. So regarding service specific to the Tropicana and Las Vegas Boulevard area to Suncoast. We modified the Centennial Express back in October of 2020 to help partially compensate for the elimination of the previous West Cliff Airport Express route. The CX now serves Tropicana and Las Vegas Boulevard, acting in somewhat of a replacement fashion to what the WAX used to be to connect to the BTC. And then from the BTC, there are other options, including Route 207 to reach Suncoast. So that trip remains possible and available just via other routes, as well as potentially using the Tropicana route to Route 120 on Fort Apache to also access Suncoast. But there are no plans at this time to specifically resurrect the WAX route in its previous form.
Got it. Thanks, Jacob. Dawn, if you have any further follow-ups in regards to the Suncoast location that you're asking, feel free to comment in the chat box. We still have another 12 or so minutes. So if you have any lingering questions, now is the time. We'll go on mute for a moment.
Yes.
Oh, okay, we'll come back to a question, just to make sure that our listener, caught the answer, but let's read the question again, and Jacob, if you could answer. Well, actually, I'll give the answer, but go ahead if you can read the question.
Yes, the question is, I live near Horizon Drive. If I need to get to downtown Henderson or to the mall, how do I do this if you discontinue the route on Pacific?
Okay, so that route, there is a route that is discontinued, but we now have a route that goes all the way along Horizon Ridge. So to go to Galleria Mall, you would have to go to, take that new route, the Cactus Horizon Ridge route, and go to a frequent bus stop, which is on Stephanie, the bus stop on Horizon Ridge in Stephanie, and take the Stephanie bus to go to Galleria. And with that same route, if you wish to go downtown, you would actually connect with the Boulder Highway express route.
Liz, if you have any follow-up questions to that, feel free to add it to the chat box.
Okay, it's 6:59, not seeing any other comments or question. I want to thank, first of all, thank Monica, Catherine, and Jesse, and Jacob, who is on the line. And thank you so much for attending. Have a great night.